So I have a wonderful little prayer that actually was channeled by Valerie Devereaux for our board meetings, because we start our board meetings with a prayer or an intention or a visualization. And she was hoping to be here today to share it with you, but she wasn't positive about her schedule. So she sent it to me, and I'm going to read it in lieu of her. And here it is. So take a moment to center your awareness and focus your attention as we open ourselves to the magic and grace of our connection with one another and the divine, not only manifest about us, but within us. As we begin this gathering, we'd like to express our heartfelt appreciation for this amazing organization, the people associated with it as teachers, mentors, and guides, for those of us who are attracted to its highest values and vibrations for healing, for prosperity, and its true essence of growth for the individual, our community, and all humanity, resulting in greater consciousness, awareness, and love. We give thanks for the opportunity to serve and share and be a part of this organization together, and to this growing awareness within humanity. May our service and experience bring new opportunities for growth to those of us who seek greater truth and awareness, and for all who are in any way connected to them along with ourselves. We thank you, Divine Presence, and ask you fill us with your ideas, your clarity, and wisdom as we expand our perceptions and work together in harmony and respect with open minds and open hearts. And so it is. Okay. So it feels really lovely to bring spirit into our circle with us in a conscious way. I appreciate all of you being a part of it. So we had actually had another person scheduled to present today, or one of our astrologer people, and she was on overwhelm and couldn't do it. So I stepped in with this EFT offering. And it's actually something that I've been thinking in the back of my mind and in my heart that it would be of value to our community. So I'm happy to step in and share this with you today. Emotional freedom technique is a very important part of my work. It has been since the late 1990s when I first learned about it, with the teacher who I learned with, which is the creator of EFT, which is Gary Craig. He actually came to my center and taught me and my community EFT in the very early days, and I have been a fan of it and using it ever since. And EFT is not something that you only use with hypnotherapy. You can use it with all kinds of other modalities. So any of you who are doing body work or energy work, channeling, whatever else you're doing, EFT is very amenable and valuable to combine with other modalities. So today I'm focusing specifically on how to support your past life clients with this, but don't think of it as in a box in any way. I use it on myself every day. One of my main things is when I'm trying to sleep at night, if I can't get back to sleep, or if I have trouble breathing because I have congestion, I use it every day to clear that and to go back to sleep very effectively. And EFT is simple to learn. It's safe. You can do it with children. You can do it remotely for other people, and you can use it on anything or everything that's going on with you. The idea behind EFT is an energy therapy that is working with the meridian system, which is what acupuncturists work with, as a way to clear energy channels so that we can come back to a homeostasis of wholeness and wellness. And the concept of energy therapy is that all of our symptoms, whether it's depression or a bum knee that won't heal, all of our symptoms are caused by a disruption in our energy system. So it's looking at the causal level of our dis-ease in our life. And by working energetically, we are aligning the energy system to come back to a homeostasis of wholeness and wellness. So it's not treating the symptoms, it's treating the cause. So today, my goal is to give you all a beginning level of competence to use EFT. We're going to be doing it together. You're going to do it on yourself and for yourself to start. And then the handout that I gave you, you have my permission to use in any way you want. If you want to share it with your clients, which is what I do, if I teach EFT to a client, I'm sharing it with them, not only by my presence and teaching, but I'm giving them materials to back it up. And if you are interested in pursuing this any farther, I have an EFT class that I co-teach with my shamanic practitioner trainer, Annie Blackstone, twice a year. And you can go on YouTube and get training all over the place for free if you want to do that. It's very, very available. So to begin, each of you consider something you're dealing with physically right now that's troubling you. It could be that you're breathing shallow. It could be that your head is foggy. It could be that you're feeling some aches and pains somewhere in your body. It might even be something that's chronic that you're dealing with. And the reason I'm having you work with something physical is because you can test the physical sensation right now in the room, where if you want to work on fear of fire, you can't test it until you're by the fire. So I want to do this in a very pragmatic way and give you something you can gauge right here, right now, to see for yourself or feel for yourself whether EFT is working for you. And you'll know it because we're going to work with what's called the SUDS level, which is a subjective units of disturbance scale, SUDS. And this is used in hospital settings for pain management. I use it for pain management hypnotherapy techniques. It's used with EMDR, which is another energy therapy. And it is kind of a universal way for a client or person to gauge for themselves subjectively the level of discomfort from 0 to 10, 10 being the worst, 0 being comfort. So whatever you're going to work on today, which I hope you're thinking about now, access the SUDS level by asking yourself, how bad is it? How intense is it? How troubling is it? And write it down so you don't forget. So I'll give you a minute to consider what you want to work on. And you can start by writing down your SUDS level. Now, idea here is that you will know if it gets better because the SUDS level will go down. So it gives you a subjective standard that you can determine whether or not it's working for you. And before I go into the actual teaching it, I'm curious, how many of you are familiar with EFT? I know some of my students are here have done it. Yeah, a lot of you are familiar with it. Oh my goodness. Okay. So EFT has evolved over the years. When I did all my CDs of EFT and hypnotherapy, I was using what's called the 9 gamut because Gary was teaching the 9 gamut as a part of it. He's not using that anymore. So we're going to eliminate the 9 gamut. And we're going to also work with some shortcut techniques because as simple and fast and easy as EFT is, there are even shortcuts for EFT that I'll be talking about. You don't need to do longer versions of it if it's working and the SUDS level is going down. So it's more efficient to use the shortcuts. Even though this is the fast foods therapy of the universe, you can even get faster than the fast foods therapy technique. So today, I will teach you the full basic recipe for EFT. We'll go through it a few times, and then we'll talk about shortcuts. We'll talk about how to get to the aspects, which are the underlying issues that create the symptoms, how to work if it's stubbornly not being effective. There's some techniques you can use with that. And we'll have a lot of time at the end for people to share and ask questions. So you'll have a very basic knowing and capacity to go ahead and start integrating it. I'll also talk about how it can be related to working with past life regression clients, which is really what we're here for today. So we'll get into that as well. And I certainly welcome your questions as we go along. This will be very interactive. Okay, people are going to share hopefully their experiences as I teach it to you. Do it. So think about your SUDS level. And ask yourself, how do you know it's that bad? What is going on in your body around this problem? Where does it live in your body? As an energetic, as a sensation? And what's the emotion connected to it? And as you focus in on it, be aware of any memories that are associated with this experience. And maybe there's some beliefs that you hold around it. Maybe they're positive, maybe they're negative beliefs. All of these aspects can be supported with EFT. And usually, to be successful with EFT, these different aspects need to be addressed at some point as part of the EFT process. Gary Craig has a metaphor of a table, like a card table with 4 legs. And when you start tapping on the issue, which is the card table metaphorically, maybe one of the legs collapses because one of the aspects related to the problem has been addressed through the tapping. But if there are other aspects that are still in place, that table's not going to move. So the goal with a experienced practitioner or the art of EFT is to help the client get to these aspects, these different parts of the problem or the different parts of the triggers that create the problem that are holding the problem in place. And once you get all the aspects effectively tapped out, it subsides. And just to give you some examples, I remember working with a little boy who was 10 years old who was coming for bedwetting with hypnotherapy. His pediatrician had referred him to me, and I do work with kids, so I get kids a lot who have, enuresis and encupresis, which are the terms for it. And this little guy was coming into my office down some stairs up to the 3rd floor, and he was having a meltdown because he was afraid of heights. He did not want to get in my building. So he started screaming and kicking, and his mother literally drug her 10-year-old boy into my office. Not a good way to start a session. Not much rapport there. But instead of working on the bedwetting, we worked on the fear of being in a high building. And when you would go to the windows of my building, you look down to a very steep hillside. And he was really frightened. So I did EFT with him, and within 5 minutes of tapping, this kid was running around the building on all of the balconies, up and down the stairs, looking out the 3rd floor window, absolutely free of fear. It was unbelievable. The mother was in my office watching this, and she was like, "What just happened?" And I said, "It's EFT. I don't know what happens. I know that it was an energy disruption that EFT took care of." Working with this kid from then on with bedwetting was a piece of cake because the rapport was there. This kid was liberated in literally 5 minutes. Now, this is one of the wonder experiences that EFT can bring. Sometimes it's long and hard work like other therapies, but it tends to be very quick when used. It tends to be very effective, and you'll have your own experience hopefully today. I just want to give you a few little inspirational stories along the way. Okay, so you've got your SUDS level. You know from tuning in what the problem is in terms of your energy experience. Here's how you start with EFT. It's called the setup phrase. Now, let's say I wanted to work on a headache. If I had a headache today, which I don't, thank goodness, but if I did, I would start by tapping on the outer part of one of my palms. This is called the karate chop with 2 fingers. So tap on it continuously, and you would make a setup phrase. And why don't you all put your microphones on mute so you can all talk aloud and we won't have cacophony while we talk together. Put your mics on mute. The setup phrase will be, "Even though I have this headache, I accept myself." So you're going to fill in the blank with what your symptom is. Even though I have this, I accept myself. Okay, that's called the setup. And it's called the setup because you are focusing on the issue at hand, which you want to know what you're tapping on, or it's not going to work. And you also want to acknowledge on some level that you have this problem, but you're not the problem. You can still have a sense of self in this. Now, some people complain about EFT because they say we're focusing on the negative. And I say that's absolutely right. We are focusing on the negative. And this is because of the law of reversed effect. If you want to change something, you first of all have to accept it the way it is. So we're getting out of denial here. We're sitting with what the problem is. That's the starting point. Now, sometimes after we do the setup, the SUDS level goes up or down. So just check and see if your SUDS level is the same. After the setup, we do a tapping sequence. In your materials, I have these sequences listed linearly, and they're also shown on the diagram at the end of the materials. You don't need to look at them now, just know that they're there so you don't have to memorize today. When you tap, 2 fingers, right or left fingers, right or left side of the body, you can intermix, doesn't matter. Sometimes people like to tap on both sides at the same time. Tap lightly on the meridians as I point them out to you. And every time you tap on a meridian, make a short statement, not the whole thing, even though I have this headache, I accept myself, but this headache. So start on the top of your head, middle of the center of your head, this headache. Tap about 7 times, but don't be compulsive about it. Next is the center of your forehead, this headache. Say it aloud so you remember what you're working on. If you start thinking about what you're cooking for dinner, that's what you'll be tapping on. So say it aloud. Now, on the inside of one of your eyebrows, either right or left side, right where the eyebrow begins, this headache. On the outside of your eyebrow, this headache, or the side of your eye. Now, under your eye, where the bone is protruding towards the outside of your eye, underneath, this headache. Now, under your nose, between your lip and your nose, this headache. Between your lower lip and your chin, this headache. Inside your collarbone, right on the cartilage, either side, this headache. I'm going to add the heart chakra, this headache. And then under your arm, about 4 inches under your armpit, this headache. Okay, that's half of the tapping. That's the upper body. And just to show you, we're doing a very systematic moving down the body. If you forget one of the tapping points, it'll probably still work. That's part of the shortcuts. So it's just moving down the body. To add the hands, hold the palm towards you, thumb up in the air. Notice where the nail bed and the flesh of your thumb on the top come together, and tap on that spot. This headache. Top of the next finger where the nail bed and the flesh come together, this headache. Keep doing each finger now. This headache. This headache. This headache. You go back to the karate chop. This headache. Okay, that's a full round of EFT. Take a breath and tune into your SUDS levels. Go back to what you recall about the sensation, the emotion, any images that came to mind, any limited or negative beliefs or positive beliefs. And for how many of you has the SUDS level gone down this first round? Anybody? Okay, we got a good amount of people. Okay. Now, watch carefully what happens when you do the next round, because perhaps the aspect has changed. For instance, the headache that I have may have turned into some worry about something that I wasn't conscious of. So if the worry is what's coming up now, that's an aspect that I'm going to tap on the next round. So pay attention. Sometimes what happens with a client when you use this is they start at a high SUDS level. They're exhibiting all the signs of a shift, which I will talk about in a moment. But when you ask them what the SUDS level is, it's still at a high level. And that's because the aspect has changed and they're not aware of it. So ask the client what the SUDS level is and what they're experiencing, so you can attest whether or not the SUDS level is for the original focus or if the aspect has shifted. And the idea with EFT is to go with the flow of the shift of the aspect. So if my headache went to anger or anxiety, that's what I'd tap on the next round. Do you understand how we're peeling off the layers here? I've had colleagues who are very anti-energy therapy or anti-EFT who say, this is ridiculous, Holly. How could this possibly help anybody? I like Jungian therapy because it's in-depth therapy. This is not in-depth therapy. And I'll say, this is like a psychic roto-rooter, you guys. It gets right down to the core of what's going on. Truly, you'll see it if you do it. And that's the only thing I can say to you guys. You're not going to know how powerful this is unless you use it. You've got to have the audacity to share this with your clients and go for it. You will see unbelievable shifts in your clients. Okay, so if your aspect shifted, the next round will be tapping on that. So you go back to your setup. Even though I have this anxiety, I accept myself. Now I'm going to just talk you through the round. Use your short term, this anxiety, whatever your term is, top of your head.
Back of eyesight, back of eyesight.
Middle of your forehead.
Back of eyesight, back of eyesight.
Inside your eyebrow.
Back of eyesight, back of eyesight.
Outside your eyebrow.
Back of eyesight.
Under your eye.
Back of eyesight, back of eyesight.
Under your nose.
Back of eyesight, back of eyesight.
Under your lip. Collarbone. Heart chakra. Under your arm. Palm towards you, thumb up in the air. Nail bed and flesh area. Each finger. Say the short thing, whatever it is. Take a breath. Check your SUDS level. As you check your SUDS level, check to see if the aspect has changed or you're still tapping on the same thing. You will chase the aspects if it's shifted. Okay, so how do you know if an aspect or if a SUDS level has shifted? There are signs that you will observe in your client. Yawning. Taking a deep breath. Sighing. Them reporting a shift of some kind, maybe a sense of tingling or lightness, or a sense of letting go in some way. Those are terms I hear. Itching, sleepiness, hunger, giggling or crying, either. Those are releases. So if you observe your partner, your client, having any of those shifts, you can pretty well sense that something shifted. And you can ask them, what's your SUDS level now after each round to determine it. And again, if the SUDS level doesn't go down, be suspicious that the aspect shifted without their awareness. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and see if you have any comments or any questions at this point. Carol.
I noticed when you were doing the hands that you tap the ring finger, and I thought in class we said don't tap the ring finger. So I was a little confused there.
I will help explain that. In the original version of EFT, we skipped this finger because we did what's called the 9 gamut. And the 9 gamut, which I will show you, I can teach it to you, but you probably will never use it, is related to the same meridian. So it would be redundant to tap the finger and the 9 gamut point. It just saves time to omit that. That's a good question, Carol, and you're very astute. You remembered that. Okay, now EFT is super forgiving. If you forget a meridian, if you tap a place that's not even a meridian, it's probably still going to work. One of my longest clients of my whole life, I've worked with for 35 years, who is a multiple personality. She is no longer a multiple personality. She's integrated through the years of therapy we've done. When she did EFT, she was doing this, on her whole body because she was tapping for all the altars at the same time. And they all had different body sizes and different body shapes. It worked for her. Another lady that I worked with was suffering severe chronic pain. She was referred by a pain special doctor who couldn't help her. And she was so sensitive that when I taught her EFT, she literally could not tap on herself. We had to tap on her energy body out here, and she would still wince in pain. EFT and some other techniques that many of you probably use through hypnotherapy saved that woman's life from the pain she was in. But it took weeks before she was desensitized enough to be able to tap on her body.
Skin on, skin on.
Another woman I worked with had no effect whatsoever in session, but she'd call me the next day after a good night's sleep and say, it's gone. So she had a 24-hour, 12 to 24-hour processing going on before she could respond to EFT. So not everybody's energy system is going to respond the same way to this. You know, we've got to have some flexibility and sensitivity to people's unique needs. And some people who have issues with, maybe they have sensate issues or right and left problems in terms of navigating life. Those people might prefer that you tap on them and let them just be receptive to it. You would obviously have to get permission to do that.
Mhm.
But there are many people that would prefer to be tapped on. And if you have loved ones who are ill or little babies who can't understand what the tapping's all about, it's perfectly okay to tap on them and they'll get the result. I wrote an article that was published in Dr. McCullough's website in the early EFT days on his blog. I don't even know if he still has it there, but I called it Bedside EFT. And it was 3 case studies I did with people who had chronic pain. One of them was in the hospital after having hip surgery. One of them was in bed with back pain. And one of them was dying from cancer. And in all 3 cases, the EFT immediately brought relief to these people. So sometimes you'll get this 1-minute wonder. Sometimes you have to work really hard, but you can be open to this really being like a magic supportive tool to have in your practice and certainly in your own life. Okay, any more comments or questions before we go on? Yeah.
I've actually used it on animals,
Yes.
and I'd surrogate tapped on myself. I am lucky and I am afraid of lightning, and tapped for them. And I had a cat who would not come in. She was an indoor cat, got out and wouldn't come in, wouldn't let me get near her. And it took, as you say, a couple of weeks, but I tapped with her every night. I went out, I knew where she was. After the 3rd week, she let me pick her up and bring her back in the house.
Yep.
So
I've had many people. I had a gal who was a horse whisperer who used to tap on her horses. And what Kiki's talking about is surrogate EFT. And this is really phenomenal. In our EFT class, which is a 12-hour class, we teach you how to do the surrogate tapping for a partner that you're working with in class who has an issue they'd like some relief on. So if Kiki, you've got a headache and I was going to tap for you, I would imagine that I am you. Or if I'm empathic, and that's not a good thing for me because I feel it so deeply, I would imagine you are outside of me and I tap on your meridians for you and come up intuitively with the SUDS levels and the aspects as I support the process. And then after we do a series of rounds of EFT, I would check in to find out what your SUDS level is and compare it what I intuited your sun level is. And it's always worked. It's always helped people. My youngest EFT patient client was in the womb. It was a baby that was kind of agitated and kicking its mom and really having an upset all the time. And we did surrogate EFT on that baby, and he just calmed right down, right in her womb. So we know it's real. We're all connected. And energy therapy, you guys, is going to expand your intuitive abilities, because you're sitting in the flow of that energy with the client. You're feeling it with them. And when you work, tap along with your client. You'll double it up. You'll double up the effectiveness and the energy.
Wow,
It's
that's
a
great.
co-creative. Yeah.
Great.
Do it together. and
Mhm.
it'll expand the effectiveness of it. What
Mhm.
else? Questions or comments? Anybody?
I just want to apologize for being late. I lost the link and I couldn't get in through the website.
I'm glad you're here, Georgina.
I'm sorry I missed the beginning. I'll catch up.
We've got it on video, so you can get it.
Yeah, because I mean, this is phenomenal. I sort of learned it way back when and have totally forgotten about using it. You've reignited that thing in me. Yeah.
It's my hope and prayer for all of you to have some new wonderful juicy stuff to work with. So let's do a round. Oh, go ahead, Susan. You had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. My daughter, she's had abdominal issues since she had a ruptured appendix when she was young, and about 8 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I introduced her to tapping EFT for her abdominal pain and other symptoms of nauseousness and lack of appetite. And she tried it, and she's very pragmatic. She's very physical world kind of person. She tried it and she claimed it made her feel worse.
That's
And then
because aspects were starting to come to the surface. The underlying issues are often more intense than we're consciously expressing through our symptoms. So if that's the case, keep tapping through it. It's that healing crisis that we sometimes see with our clients. It gets worse before it gets better. And it's hard if somebody's already in pain when they start to feel more pain. So there's probably going to be a reticence to do it. You know, it's complicated.
yeah,
But I would encourage people to keep going. And one of the things I'd be audacious. I'd say, even though it's hurting worse and I don't think this is working one bit and I want to stop, I still accept myself. I don't believe it can help me. It's just getting worse. Why me? You know, you can tap on all the different feelings that come up around it to be provocative of getting all those tendrils and aspects to come to the surface. That's what a really skilled EFT practitioner would be doing. It's like getting provocative around it. Now I'm having you guys just say this thing one time, like this headache, this headache, this headache. It'll work that way. But if you know your client and you're intuitive and you've done a good interview, you're already going to know what some of the aspects are. So you can change it up with each comment. This headache, I get them every month. I wonder if it's hormones. Maybe I'm too stressed out. What do I do? Why did I do to deserve this? You know, all the different things that might come up. If you just get creative and tap on it, you're going to clear it out probably faster. But that's a more advanced approach. You don't have to do that to get the effects of EFT. Any more comments or questions?
Magic.
Yeah. Somebody? No? Okay, let's do another round on our own. Put your mics off, so we're not going to get everybody talking at the same time. If your aspect is changed, use that for your setup. Even though I have this, I accept myself, and just go ahead and do your round. Remember what your beginning suds level is round 2. Check your suds level when you complete your round. Okay, so I'm going to invite anyone who would like to share about your starting suds level, your focus, and any aspects that have come up, if any, and your current suds level. If anybody would like just to share what that pattern was for you as you did this process. We've had 3 rounds of tapping so far. Would anybody like to share so we can hear how it works for people? How do you say your name? Gitika?
Gitika. Yes.
Gitika? Hi, Gitika. Thank you.
Hi, nice to see you again. I started with the first round because of with my joint pain. My small joints, they hurt, and this has happened about very recently, a month back. I've been inquiring about it also in my time of introspection. So I started with this joint pain that even though I have this pain in my bones, I accept myself. The suds level were about 3 because I don't know how 10 feels with this joint pain. The second round shifted to worry, the worry to do something. And in the third round, the second round, when I started doing it again, it started shifting to anxiety when I started feeling triggers in my body. And by the time I actually reached here, I could have started crying. Yeah, so yes, like that, yeah. So it was, and now I'm really anxious. Like,
Okay.
and
keep
right now,
tapping on
also as I speak, I actively feel anxiety.
keep tapping on the anxiety. That's good. It may not be comfortable for you now, but you can see how quickly things shift with this. Just keep following the energy and the aspects. When you work on physical issues with EFT, it is sometimes more difficult because there's almost always an emotional level that's holding it in place. Resentment, anger, guilt, something like that is underneath it. And hopefully it'll start to emerge so that you can tap on the emotion. If EFT does not start to go down, then let go of the focus of the pain or the discomfort and go with the emotion that you're feeling about it. That'll usually shift it. That'll peel off a layer. So for you, it was an automatic, natural evolution that came through the aspect shifts. When you're tapping, the goal is to get to the aspects because that's what's going to topple the table metaphorically. And here are some techniques you can use to help you get to the aspects. The first one is called the persistence technique. Just keep tapping. Don't give up. Keep tapping. My longest client who was persistent was a 74-year-old man who had what he called love pain because he was obsessed by this woman sexually. He was absolutely obsessed with this woman. And he would tap in a session, it would go down, and he'd be back in my office in a week with the obsession again. We had 17 EFT sessions. He finally took the EFT class. He became really good at it. And finally, he agreed to do some regression therapy. It took him a while. After we did the regression therapy, which went to a childhood memory of his mother sexually abusing him, which was the aspect we never got to with EFT, the obsession went away. But it was the persistent technique that drove this man to have the capacity to do a regression. He was terrified of it because on some level, he knew there was something going on under there, right? So the persistence technique. The second technique is to go with what's happening. Follow the energy, follow the aspects, follow the tears if they come, follow the laughter, let it all come up, bubble up, and unfold, and just stay present with what is. You don't have to keep tapping this headache, this headache, this headache. It'll still work, but it won't work as quickly. Another one is to be specific. Here's an example. I worked with a 14-year-old boy who had a terrible fear of spiders. And he was really worried because he was going on a camping trip with the Boy Scouts and he didn't want to freak out if he saw a spider and act like he was a wuss. So in my office, I have play therapy tools. One of them is called sand play therapy. And I had a whole basket of toy spiders in there. And I asked him if I could bring the toy spiders out, and he said, no friggin' wait. I don't want to see those spiders. Keep them away from me. I said, okay, how much? What's your SUDS level? It's a 14. Okay, we tapped on that. We got it down to about a 5. And then it wouldn't go any lower. It would not go any lower. So I said, okay, tell me specifically what it is about spiders you hate. I don't like their hairy legs. Okay, let's tap on that. We got the hairy legs down. Still had a high SUDS level. What else don't you like? I don't like the way they move. Okay, we're going to tap on that. Finally, we got to a memory that he had of being a kid, being in bed, being bitten by a spider, and having to go to the hospital. So we tapped on that memory. By the end of the session, he let me bring in a baby spider. He held it in his hand. It was just a plastic spider. Then he let me get a big hairy spider. And by the end of the session, we were throwing toy spiders back and forth in my office and having hysterical laughter. Because for him, we had to get to the aspects, all the different compartmentalized experiences that related to this gestalt of fear of spiders. So work with being specific. You can say specifically, what is it about this headache that's bothering you? Well, it's because it's reoccurrent and I have no control. Okay, let's tap on that. You see how we're kind of being provocative and peeling off the layers here? This is where your therapy skills are going to be really great. The last one is called the intuitive technique. This is one I rely on because, I've been doing this work for so many years. I have an intuitive knowing when I hear people's presenting issues, and I can read between the lines what might be going on. So I might ask permission. Would you like to tap on this? Or would you like to tap on this? I wonder if this might be related to what you're dealing with. And sometimes that's what opens the door and opens the box. So you can bring your therapy and intuitive skills to the table and be tentative, but give them ideas of what some things could be that you could tap on related to the presenting issue. And the last one I want to talk about, actually there's 2 more. The last one I want to talk about is called the short story technique. And this technique is what got EFT on the books as being effective because of all the studies that have been done. There's a man named Dawson Church, who's a psychologist in the Bay Area, who has done fabulous studies on EFT with people who have PTSD that were in the military. And he worked with veterans with this study on people who got traditional therapeutic interventions for PTSD and people who got EFT. And he shows unequivocally how effective EFT is for post-traumatic stress disorder. And you guys can put in on your Google, Dawson Church EFT for vets, and the study will come up. And you can read the study and get all the statistics, which I don't carry in my head, but they're pretty astounding. And this study is what got EFT to be something that was taken notice in the therapy world because it showed the efficacy of it. And the short story technique is to have a client or yourself, if it's your own trauma, talk about the trauma that happened to you, starting with the beginning of it. And as soon as the SUDS level goes up to any level of distress, to stop and tap on that part of the story until that part's at a 0, and then to pick the story up from that place to go forward to the next part of the story until they can tell the whole story without any SUDS level. And this is what clears the PTSD symptoms. So this is another approach. And just as in any therapy or anything in life, once people start working it, it starts to evolve. And EFT has evolved in so many wonderful ways. There's one technique that's called the peace technique, that after you do a round, you grab your wrist and say peace. And you guys can add that if you want. You do your round and then say peace and close your eyes and just feel the peace when you say that. It's a lovely anchor for every round. Another one is called the choice method technique, which I use all the time because clients sometimes say, I don't want to just focus on the negative. Well, this technique will take care of that concern because you say something like, Even though I have this chronic headache, I accept myself and I choose to heal it completely. Or even though I'm really angry with my boss, I accept myself and I choose to forgive him. Angry at my boss, I choose to forgive him. Angry at my boss, I choose to forgive him. So you do negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. It's very effective. I actually prefer that over just the typical EFT because it's really provocative and really expands the field to bring in the positive while the negative is releasing. Or you could do a round of the negative and a round of the positive, back and forth. So you see how with anything in life, there's an evolution going on because those of us who learn it, take it and put a spin on it and come up with something new and creative and discover, and maybe we're integrating it with other techniques that we already know to create a new form. Give yourself permission with EFT to do that, and with anything you learn, because you're part of the evolutionary process here that's galvanizing our planet. Let's keep going forward, keep expanding. Okay, so any more questions? Comments? How would you all like to partner up and do a little bit of EFT with a partner for a little while? Would you be willing to do that? No? Yeah? I got some yeses and some nos. I got an idea. I'll put 3 in a group, and one of you can be the observer if you don't want to participate. And you can decide who's going to be the client, who's going to be the therapist, and you can do 15 minutes of EFT. And maybe do 10 minutes of EFT and then change it around, let the other person be the client for 10 minutes. And then we'll come back at the end and we'll talk about your experience and try to iron out any problems or questions that came up. Would that be okay? I think it'll empower you to take it and go with it if you have an experience with this. So we'll do that. Okay, so we got 14 people. 7, 3.
Holly, if you do it, it makes 15.
Huh?
If you do it, we'll be 15.
I can do it.
Yep,
Okay.
3.
You gonna go? We're not hearing you. We're not hearing you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I have to leave because of,
Okay.
my
Okay.
family, and it's
All
8.
right, yeah.
So yeah. But thank
Okay.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I
Bye.
can't stay. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we got 3 in a group here, except there'll be one group of 2. And it's 5 o'clock, so you've got about 10 minutes to do one round, a couple of rounds with one person as the client, then switch 10 minutes more, and then we'll come back in 20 minutes. There we go. You might as well go ahead and start sharing. So everybody, if you want to ask questions, you can ask questions as people get back. So do any of you have any questions you want to ask?
I don't have questions, but I have an interesting story to share.
Go ahead, share.
Well, I went first, and I was working with Dina and Lisanne, and I started with a headache when we first started, and it's really hot and stuffy and humid, and I'm miserable with it. And I call it a heat headache or a storm headache. And while we were tapping on that, it went into my neck. So instead of hurting in my head, now the back of my neck, and it went from a 6 to a 7. And when we were tapping again on it, I kept getting, it's a pain in the neck to be stuck in this body that's so miserable and suffering in this heat, was a phrase I got. So that's what I started tapping on with Dina. Just it's a pain in the neck to be stuck in this body that is so uncomfortable in this heat, right? So you're tapping on. And all of a sudden, I felt something clamp on the back of my head, like I'm being held. And I knew it was a past life. It was a death experience of a past life. And I can't get too many details because it was probably pretty awful, but being held by this part of my head dangled over heat, like being burned, like, burned for a witch or whatever, a heretic or whatever. I bet money I was a heretic. And we were tapping on that, and Lisanne suggested that I tap on, I choose to accept it. like you said, you do the back, we do the back and forth. We just focused on, even though, and at one point, I think I said I chose to accept it. Even though this is such a pain in the neck, I chose to accept it. And it's gone down from like a 7, it's down to like a 3.5.
Keep
So I
going.
know that there's something more there, but I think I have to do past life work,
Good.
the heart of it.
Okay, we're gonna have a little bit of time to talk about how we can relate this to past life work. So I'm glad you shared your story.
Thought you might be.
Does anybody have any stories to share briefly or questions that came up as you practiced? Yes.
So I just felt, Holly, that I was with Sarah and Jill was helping us facilitate. Yeah, hi. So things also shift from when aspects, we speak about aspects, they also shift from a feeling to somatics. They come back to the body and then they go back to feelings and they come back to the body. So they keep bouncing like this. For me, it was happening like, my joint pain then became worried and worry turned into a very deep anxiety. I could feel it in 2 parts of the body, in the throat and in my diaphragm, like there was a hollow feeling. And I thought that I could take a jump inside this hollow hole in my diaphragm as to feel this anxiety, that where is this anxiety coming from? Is it, what am I getting at? I didn't have a reason, but my whole body started to vibrate with anxiety. And as I said, I could have taken a jump inside this hole in my diaphragm, a deep hole. So now, when that kind of a thing, is it always a past life? Or, we always need to regress from here? Is this what we are trying to say? What's the loop?
Absolutely. As something like this comes up, you can use it as a focus for regression. You can go from EFT to regression. You can go from from aggression to EFT. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But I'm going to see if anybody else has, thank you for sharing that. If anybody else has anything they want to report or ask about. Anything else? Okay. So let's talk about past life therapy and EFT. One of the things you can consider when you have a client new to doing a regression who usually has fears or hesitations about it, one of the big areas is I'm going to find out something that I did that's terrible and I'm worried was really bad, or I'm too stressed out to relax right now when I think about working on my fear of water. Whatever it is in the beginning of the session that might be a deterrent for being able to work well with that client, you can tap it out before you even go into hypnosis. Another thing you can work on is any limiting or negative beliefs that are associated with the past life that will come out of the past life work. Or perhaps it comes out of the interview and how they're carrying those beliefs in the current lifetime that are inhibiting their wholeness. There's a whole protocol that you can learn specifically for limiting or negative beliefs. The SUDS level is how true is the belief in that case. And you tap on the trueness of it until it's at a 0. And then you tap in on the 9 gamut spot, a positive belief that would replace it. So you clear the negative and tap in the positive. That's a whole protocol just for beliefs. Another thing you can do with EFT in past lives is tap on any trauma they're accessing while they're in trance. So if they go to a death experience that's really traumatic, they can sit in trance and tap on themselves, if they've learned EFT ahead of time, of course, while they're experiencing and describing their experience in trance. So they can tap on the past life consciousness of that experience. They're tapping to heal the past life aspect. It's like working with the subpersonality part. You can tap for your inner child. You can tap for your inner critic. You can tap for your past lives. That can be done while in trance if the client knows EFT. If they don't know EFT and you are comfortable doing so, as is the client, you can tap on them while they're in trance with permission, of course. I'd be very careful about tapping under there because of the boob area, though. Not a good place to be tapping when somebody's got their eyes closed. And then after the session, if anyone comes out with that hypnotic hangover that people have sometimes, or they're feeling a state of awe, or they're not in their bodies, or they're having a flooding of more information that's related to their life or past lives, it can help by tapping to integrate, to take down an amplitude of whatever the anxiety or awe or distress or discovery is, just to take them down so they can actually get back in their body and integrate the material. And they can take EFT home with them to do it for themselves as they're working on the residual of the session and integrating any of it. It's limitless. It's absolutely limitless. So if you feel that the client needs a little extra something to either get into the process, during the process, or after, suggest that they work with EFT. And if you're going to do that, you're going to have to teach them EFT before you do the regression processes. So have that be one of the primary resourcings that you give your client before you do a regression. And that's true with any modality any of you are using. It works fabulously with hypnotherapy, fabulous in hypnosis, or after they're out of hypnosis to help them get back in their bodies and integrate. Or if they discover something in hypnosis that they didn't know happened, say maybe a trauma they didn't know happened, they can take EFT into their daily life and tap on whatever anxieties coming up around what they discovered in the hypnotic process. Kiki.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this. The one of the official protocols for IBS and an official protocol for tinnitus is combining hypnosis and EFT.
Yes.
It's considered a working partnership. Just want to share that.
One of the things that new practitioners to EFT struggle with is the setup phrase and the languaging. And if any of you have my script book, the hypnotherapy script book, I have a whole EFT section in that book with a script on how to use EFT. And also, I think I've got 3 or 4 pages of potential setup phrases to help people with specific presenting issues get started. I've got a whole section on weight management, a whole section on pain, a whole section on exercise. So you can go to those pages in the book and get a starting point so you can start to cultivate your own capacity to come up with the setup phrases. Okay, I think I covered everything. What questions have you got remaining before we close, or any comments you want to share about your process before we close? Yes, Susan.
What would you recommend for a way to find a really excellent EFT practitioner in a certain area, like the East Coast, for example?
Well, if you go, there's a whole bunch of EFT websites. I can't think of the big one, what's called.
Emofree.com.
Well, emofree.com will connect you to Gary Craig's website. And I don't think he lists practitioners there. He may. He didn't used to. I haven't been on his website in years. But there's another one, it's called EFT World or something like that. So you might just Google sources for EFT practitioners.
Okay.
Okay. I could refer you to any of my grads who've been trained in EFT too, that combine it, that, you know, they've done the work of beginning and advanced EFT training. So I could refer from my group as well.
Okay. Yeah, there's always Zoom.
Yeah.
When is your next EFT training?
It'll happen in September. It's 4 Fridays in September Pacific time from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. We tried to set it so people could work with it, whatever time zone they're in.
I think that's 6 to 9 for us, Georgina.
Okay,
Yeah.
on Fridays.
It's on Fridays, and Annie Blackstone, who is one of my hypnotherapy instructors and also who teaches the whole shamanic practitioner certification course, and I co-teach it. So she'll do 2 Fridays and I'll do 2 Fridays. And then we have an advanced EFT class. It's a 1-day class that Annie also teaches, which will take some of these sideline techniques and incorporate them into the work. So you can expand, like that peace method, for instance. Please take this and run with it. I know it's hard at first because it's a hump to get over to believe it, number 1. It looks silly, number 2. And once you have an experience of it and you see the potential, you'll be on board. You'll go for it for yourself for sure. and you'll definitely want to help your clients use it.
I know that Sean Gallagher uses it with her hypnosis for birthing.
Yeah,
Mm.
she'd be great for that.
She uses it a lot for that. Yeah.
Well, I teach this EFT 3-hour intro course in my hypnotherapy training right up front, because I want my students to have it as a part of when they're practicing and, you know, learning the techniques, because a new practitioner has all kinds of bumps, and their self-confidence can be supported with having EFT. You know, they can get out of their own way a little bit. You can tap your way into bliss.
Who needs weed when you can tap your way into bliss, right? That's a new phrase for the government. We can give it to the government. They want to stop teenagers vaping.
We need to tap our way into a lot of places right now.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, well, this has
I
been
wanted to,
a joy
Holly, I
share
wanted
this.
to ask you what question real quick. So I shared with you that I actually triggered some past life memory doing the tapping. Would you have gone, if we were working together, would you just gone right into that past life?
Yes, yes, with
Interesting.
permission. With permission.
Yeah,
I'd say,
yeah.
okay, look at what's come up. We want to explore this. We can just go right into the hypnosis from it. EFT is trance producing. It's a physical sensate experience of inducing trance. People will be sitting in your office going, you know, they'll be there.
Be halfway there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I felt. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Thank
take it and run with it. It's been a joy to share this with all of you. It's been
Thank
a
you,
gift.
ladies.
It's been a
Bye-bye.
gift.
Thank you so much, Holly.
You're so welcome. Take care.